Takeaways from the end of the Suns' winning streak at long last. It had to happen. It did happen. We'll talk about that game in Golden State on Friday night. Takeaways from the entirety of the Suns' winning streak and a look at what comes next this season, which is a little bit of an interesting thing to consider. There are about 60 games left. Yes, there is more basketball. This is not it. We'll talk about all of it coming up right away on Locked On Suns.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, covering the Suns the past 5 seasons right here in the Valley as a credentialed media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen every single morning. We are everywhere. YouTube, where our channel subscriptions are growing. I'll talk about that in just a second. Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Listening is the best way to support the show. So thank you for doing that already. Subscribe so you do not miss an episode. Follow us on Twitter if you would like as well at Locked On PHX Suns. And you can follow me on Twitter if you would like at Brendon Kleen 14. The Suns lost on Friday night, ending their winning streak at 18 games. They are 19-4 now. The Warriors are 19-3. It ended up being a pretty ugly final score, but I don't think that gives us everything we need to know. We'll get right into that. I wanted to tell you guys first, though, today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. Check out PrizePicks.com. Use the promo code NBA or go to your app store and download their app today. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. One more housekeeping note before we really dive into that 118-96 loss to the Golden State Warriors on Friday and then the rest of our proceedings today. Valley Proud Towel. I'm going to put one more call out here. It was supposed to be for 500 subscribers, and then I screwed things up because I did not realize that YouTube does not show me every single subscriber that I have, so I do not want to leave anybody out. What I will do instead is open it up for one more day at Locked On PHX Suns in the comment section of this YouTube video. Send me a screenshot proving that you subscribe to the YouTube channel, and this Valley Proud Towel from opening night of the season could be yours. When we get to 750, which is actually not that far away, I have another one, an NBA playoffs Rally the Valley, We Are the Valley towel from the playoffs last year that I forgot that I had, and now it could be yours. So hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Send me proof that you are subscribed, and that could be yours. I will randomly select from the people who send me that proof and send it your way. I will pay for postage and all that. Do not worry. I just need to find a person, and I don't want to wait much longer. So one more day for that, and then 750, which is only about 100 subscribers away, we will get into the playoff towel that I found recently as well. All right. Takeaways from this Warriors game. So first and foremost, no Devin Booker. He did not play against the Pistons, and he did not play on the second night of the back-to-back on Friday against Golden State on the road either. And second to that, too, you had in this game, I believe, maybe the third quarter, if I'm remembering right. That's what happens when you do a show 2 days after a game. Bridges fractured, or I guess dislocated is a better word, his pinky finger, and it was bent in the wrong direction. He had to go get it reset. It looked like he was feeling nauseous, kind of like a reaction, like a psychological, visceral reaction to just seeing that injury. I don't think it really was the pain, but what do I know? And he did come back, but he's now has tape on that finger. He finished the game with the tape. Kellen Olson of Arizona Sports tweeted on Sunday after practice that tape is still there. So as far as the nitty gritty, those were really the takeaways. On the Warriors side, no Andre Iguodala again. Andrew Wiggins did play and played much better than he did in the first matchup of the week. The back spasms were bothering him pretty clearly on Tuesday night in Phoenix. He looked a lot better in the home game. So that's sort of the details, the blow-by-blow type of stuff. But apart from that, because we'll see what actually holds up from there in terms of health. Klay Thompson might be in the lineup when these two teams meet again. Apart from that, a few things that I feel like from a Suns perspective that we learned are, one, most importantly, the Suns can score on this Warriors defense. Now, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and try to convince you that scoring 96 points is something that should be celebrated. The Suns only had 48 in the first half and then only 48 in the second half. But really, the second and fourth quarters with the bench on the floor or some of these combo lineups were actually where they did some damage. So that's interesting to note. But I will just say, when the offense was rolling, they were able to score. So to play, only 15 of the 96 minutes of these two matchups with Devin Booker in the lineup and still be able to score for long stretches pretty effectively, I think says a lot. Because in case you forget, the Warriors are first in the NBA in defense by, I think, a mile. Actually understates it. They are so much better than the rest of the NBA defensively from a statistical perspective that it's not even close. They are allowing 101.1 points per 100 possessions on defense this year. The Suns are second in the NBA, right behind them, but not right behind them. The Suns are at 105.1. So the Warriors are averaging a full 4 fewer points per 100 possessions than the Suns are. I will also say, when you're looking at that 96 figure, that was just shy of 100 possessions in this game. The Suns actually did have 100. The Warriors had 99. So my point being, 96 per 100 possession is just short of the Warriors' number, and they didn't have Devin Booker, and they didn't have a healthy Mikal Bridges. So the Suns can score. The Warriors try to bog things down by switching. They try to not allow perimeter penetration from the perimeter. They try to limit ball movement. So a couple things really stand out. One is, I believe across these two games, Deandre Ayton got to the line 18 times, and he made a lot more of them in the second game, which I will give him credit for because I addressed that in my recap back on Tuesday night. And when he made only 3 of 7, now he made 9 of 11 in the second matchup. So very good to see him making those, but he got to the line, which is pretty important. And he scored more than 20 points in both games. So that to me shows that the Suns are going to be able to exploit that matchup. Ayton was hitting the offensive glass. He was getting those seals in transition. He was, when it made sense in the flow of the offense, the Suns were able to drop the ball into him on a switch, and he was able to make something happen. And a lot of the times, the Warriors were devoting so much attention to him because of how small they like to play, and because of the mismatches that they were creating, that they were either having to foul him or they were just, creating these opportunities for Ayton to then make a play as a passer. Something I think the Suns will definitely look at more when they play them on Christmas and in the potential playoff series if we get there, is Ayton using that attention, not even necessarily always looking to score, but I think you could see some games where Ayton is flashing to pass out of the post or on the short roll when he catches the ball on a pick and roll. I think all of that is going to happen. The other part that proves that the Suns are going to be able to score is they actually got a pretty decent number of assists. By switching so much, the Warriors mostly are going to try to limit the rotations that they have to make. That's not to say that somebody like Draymond Green or even like Juan Toscano Anderson or Gary Payton Jr. or any of these guys, Andrew Wiggins, are not incredible team defenders as well when they are having to rotate. But the scheme that the Warriors play when they are switching a lot, which is what they're doing most of the time, is designed so they don't have to necessarily be recovering and adjusting and flying around the floor all that often, right? They want to switch. They want to pre-switch before the action even happens. They want to use their IQ and their size and length as athletes to make it so you don't even get to do anything as a team, and they're going to stop you ahead of time. What the Suns' assist totals to me prove, which 23, for the Suns, might not sound like a lot. I mean, I'm the guy who's always harping on 30 being the benchmark you want to see the Suns get to. But remember, relatively low possession game, somewhat, and the Suns only scored 96 points. They only took 81 shots. They only made 31 shots. So when you look at that, 31 of their 23 made field goals were assisted. So that shows me actually that when the Suns were able to score, for the most part, it was because of their ball and player movement and that system working, even though the Warriors tried to make it not work. That's the point of their defense, their league leading defense. So that is, in a nutshell, to me, what we were able to glean without Devin Booker in there. I will also make one more point here. These first segments sometimes get away from me, but I have to pack it all in. I think you guys appreciate that. So last thing, the Warriors. I mentioned when I talked to Matt Moore last week that the playmakers, the big man playmakers for the Warriors were atrocious in the first game. Bjelica, Juan Toscano-Anderson, and Draymond Green. Ton of turnovers, weren't making their shots. Steve Kerr couldn't even afford to have them on the floor. Well, in this game, they combined for 16 assists between those three players and only 3 total turnovers. So those guys were great, partially because Steph was making his shots and they're going to be the ones to assist a lot of those, but also probably because it was at home. And I'll have to go back and watch, honestly, to really get more into that. But that's a positive for the Warriors. A positive for the Suns is the offense working. I'll get to more of what this whole streak taught us using your listener questions from Twitter and Reddit in just a second. First, though, another word from our friends at PrizePicks, the best NBA daily fantasy game on the market. We love PrizePicks here at the Locked On Podcast Network, and we know our listeners will as well. PrizePicks offers more NBA props than any other prop operator and all of the superstar players as well as bench players who are just averaging a handful of minutes or touches per game. Here's how the game works using all those players, using the number one number of odds and props that there is on the market. It's fantasy using props. So, for instance, you pick 2 to 5 players, you pick the over or under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. It's just you versus the projections. No pool, no head-to-head matchup in a league, just you versus those projections. You can use mixed sport entries. Maybe you like Bryce Young over on touchdowns, or you like Kyler Murray under on interceptions, and you want to add in maybe over on Mikal Bridges threes. You can do that. Use PrizePicks award-winning app on both the App Store and Google Play or their website. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less, and PrizePicks is safe and offers fast withdrawals. So don't hesitate to check out prizepicks.com. Use the promo code NBA or go to the App Store and download that app today. PrizePicks, daily fantasy made easy. Today's show also brought to you by DirecTV Stream. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friend's login just for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all the entertainment that you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes, no need to buy another device ever again, and the best part, no annual contracts to get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. Learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. Going to be using your questions here from Reddit, the Suns subreddit, as well as Twitter to answer the question of what did we learn through this win streak. 18 games, most in franchise history. I have waxed poetic about streak and about the legacy of this team that is completely in its path here. Very realistic that it could become the best Suns team ever, but there's also some more, details of things that we want to pull apart from that streak that we really learned. So the first one that I would like to get to is a check-in on Mikal Bridges and Deandre Ayton, because those are two players that we were really looking at as people who I am really out of focus here. Let me go ahead and I will come, and there we go. I am back in focus. Apologies to everybody watching on YouTube. I do not know what is going on, but here's the question. I really got to know, who do you feel is the Suns' third best player? Bridges or Ayton? We also had a question from Suns 30. Phoenix PHX Suns 33. Do you think Deandre Ayton is worth a max contract based on how he has played so far this season? So let's check in. I want to start with the who is the best player one because I think that's the most interesting. I recently changed my mind on this. And if you had asked me for a while who the Suns' best player was, and I'm not overreacting to the fact that Mikal just had a bad game. So please do not think that that is what's going on by any means. But what changed my mind is actually it was the Warriors games, but it was the greatness that Deandre Ayton was able to display more so than it was anything that Mikal wasn't doing. And so here's what I mean. I mean, I think it was a fair question to ask going into the season. What if what Deandre Ayton did in the playoffs last year was really legit? Was it going to continue? Because it wasn't as if I thought that like he doesn't have the talent. I mean, you can't do it once if you don't have the talent. And the fact that he did it for the whole playoffs shows that that's clearly within his reach as a player. But what I mean is, could he put the effort in? Was something like that within reach for him every single night from a conditioning, mental focus, commitment perspective, or was that something that it was going to be, turn it on, turn it off, depending on when the moment was really there? Because I think, just generally speaking, that's something that separates good players from great players, is being able to go out there and do it every single night for your team and lead them to winning. And I think that's true in most sports. You know what I mean? Like it's like the tier of guys like, Donovan Mitchell, or I don't know if that's fair, but let's say Jamal Murray, Pascal Siakam, CJ McCollum. I like, it's that tier like right below All-Star. And it really is a big distinction. And the difference is those guys don't do it every day. They don't make their teammates necessarily better. But Ayton is showing that he has it within him to execute, to take advantage of what the defense is giving him, and to, just generally speaking, produce at an incredibly high level every single night. And the Suns will be better off for it. And that's really what we saw in the Warriors and the two Warriors games was Ayton 20 plus points in each game, hitting the offensive boards, getting to the free throw line. And we saw that throughout the streak was him, really, really, really making the defense pay. Again, I will say Mikal Bridges, he just escalated his 3-point percentage up past 40, up to 41% for the second straight season. He was at 43 last year. Most of the numbers will say to you that Mikal is the better player. And I want to dig into some of those because really when you're looking at overall value, I mean, the first thing is so many of these stats are incredibly, incredibly variable. They don't tell you the same story. They don't paint the same picture. Estimated plus minus, which is sort of the new craze if you see writers using it, or there was a poll by Michael Scotto, I believe, at Hoops Hype that was really good, where he actually asked like NBA executives that are his sources in the league, what do they use? What do they trust? And actually estimated plus minus ranked pretty highly. Plus 2.4, which is like sort of an estimated net rating type of thing for a player. Ayton is at plus 2.4. That's actually ahead of Devin Booker, and it's pretty considerably ahead of Mikal Bridges, who is, I believe, down around 1 or between 0 and 1. Plus 0.9 is where Bridges is in that statistic. If you look at Raptor, which is 538's all-in-one number, it's the exact opposite. So I don't know which one to believe, because Ayton in that one is like a 0. He's like a plus 0.1, and then it's actually Bridges who is like plus 2 or 3. And you look at those two together and it's like, which one do you take seriously, right? So what I would say this streak showed us that I think people who like Ayton have always felt and always known is that these two players are between these two players, what Ayton's able to do as a creator inside, as an efficient scorer, as a difference maker on defense. I mean, it's basically the argument of why, NBA talent evaluators will always have a soft spot in their heart for a difference making big man, right? Like, I'm not getting into the 2018 draft conversation all over again, but it's just the simple fact that until Mikal Bridges, or unless Mikal Bridges ever develops a genuine off the bounce shot creation, playmaking type of game for himself, there's a limit on what type of value a player like that can have. And on the flip side, Ayton, even if he doesn't, and he has not yet developed a legitimate sort of, post game or playmaking from the center position type of style, even without that, the ceiling on how he's able to impact the game is just higher. And as we saw during the streak, and especially against the Warriors last week, you can affect the game at an incredibly high level when you're engaged, when you're playing with energy, when you're well conditioned. He is all of those things right now. And so that's why I'll give him the edge. More of your questions to come from Reddit, from Twitter. I'm sorry that I'm not sorry. I'm not going to say I'm sorry for talking about Bridges and Ayton. Look, they're the third and fourth best players on this team. They played incredibly well during that streak. So I did take a whole segment on them, but there will be more. I actually want to talk a little bit about sort of like, again, what to look forward at as we head to the rest of the season. But first, we love the holidays. Everybody does, of course. Good treats, yummy food. Whether you celebrate or not, you're around it. There's sweets, there's treats, there's potlucks at work, there's this and that, and there's a bunch of new delicious things all over the grocery store that you have to try to be not tempted by. But Built Bar is the one thing you don't have to feel guilty for. Built Bar is the new holiday dessert. Feast on something delicious and feel good about it. Maybe you replace that peppermint brownie with a coconut Built Bar, or maybe your family's more of that fruit. Maybe it's like strawberry rhubarb pie. I know some people like that. Well, go for the raspberry Built Bar. There's no shortage of replacements. You can always find something delicious at Built Bar. Every single one's going to be covered in, I used to say chocolate, but they're actually expanding. Everyone's covered in a nice shell of, it could be caramel, it could be white chocolate, it could be regular chocolate, but all of them are going to be low calorie, low carb, low fat, and high protein. That's what you want in a Built Bar, or that's what you want in a protein bar, and that's what you get in a Built Bar. New surprises coming throughout the month, limited time flavors arriving regularly at Built.com, so check that site often. Again, that's Built.com. Use the promo code LOCK15 when you make your purchase to get 15% off your next order. Again, that's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. Today's show also brought to you by BetOnline AG, which has you covered all season for more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season continues their march to the playoffs. Maybe that's bowl games. Maybe that's the NFL regular season winding down. Maybe you're starting to get in on awards in the NFL. Either way, BetOnline remains your number one spot throughout the rest of the year and beyond. So head to that new updated desktop or mobile website. Make an account today, and when you do, use the promo code LOCKEDON when you make your first deposit to get a 50% welcome bonus straight to your account. That's promo code LOCKEDON when you make your first deposit to get a 50% welcome bonus. From basketball and football to the NHL, boxing, UFC, and your favorite Vegas casino games even. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available throughout the rest of 2021. Bet online, where the game starts. Going to go a little bit quicker. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen every single morning. Got more questions to get to. Thank you to the Suns subreddit, r/Suns, for their help here. I know it's R. I know you're not supposed to say the slash, so anybody from Reddit listening to this that's thinking you're an idiot, you don't know how to speak Reddit language, I do, but it doesn't come across well when you just say our Suns. I've done this before. I've done mailbags before. I think I sound so dumb when I do that. So I'm not. I know how to speak, though. I promise. All right. Let's do this one. Just to put a bow on the Warriors. It is from user Chosen1 I understand it's Chosen One again. It's weird. You guys try saying things on the internet and then think about how silly it sounds. Promise you, Chosen One, I know. Okay. Looking ahead to the Christmas Day game with the Warriors, do you think Booker and Klay will be back? And if so, which of those two do you think have the biggest impact influence on their team? Obviously, Book is very important, but I think people forget how good Klay is. Okay. It's really just going to be me here looking forward to the rest of the to that second matchup and the rest of how these teams will match up throughout the rest of the season, because I definitely think Devin Booker will be back. I mean, a hamstring thing, like, worst case scenario, like 3 weeks would be long for something like that, considering, right away, Woj's report was that it was fairly precautionary. He did not tear his hamstring. He did not, we didn't hear language of a legitimate injury. It's really just, tightness, soreness, pull, that type of thing. So I don't expect Booker to be gone still on Christmas. I think he will be back. And I believe that Klay Thompson is now to the point where he is practicing fully, if I'm picking up correctly what the Warriors reporters are putting down. And he's now going out on the floor for warm-ups pregame, if I saw correctly in some of the videos going around over the weekend. So I think he may actually debut prior to Christmas Day, which, man, I think we all would be thrilled for that. I mean, it's going to be such a fun game either way, but for those teams to be at full strength and for us to get a genuine, potential like Western Conference Finals preview type of game on Christmas, some of the Christmas games have been real, like, kind of crap the past few years, because they always want to put the Knicks and the Celtics and whatever on TV, or they want to put the Clippers on TV, these teams that never are healthy and whatnot. So I'm thrilled. I think it's going to be fun. Here's quickly what I think I would be watching for. Does Klay defend Booker? Just what level of defense and athletic ability on that end are we going to be getting from Klay when he returns? Is it a situation where he can transition right into some of those defensive assignments and Wiggins can then be free to, maybe be more of a Swiss Army knife, or at least be available to check and be, they can be a little bit more, I guess, confusing in their defensive assignments, the Warriors, because they don't have to do the same thing every possession down the floor? Could they have it where, okay, it's Klay this possession, then it's Wiggins, or maybe in this lineup it's Wiggins, in this lineup it's Klay, in this lineup it's Iguodala? That's what they used to really be able to do to you, even with, Sean Livingston too, back during the dynasty days. Now it's been really just Wiggins lately, because he's the only guy healthy that really is that elite wing defender. So that would be interesting to me. And then besides him, I mean, Wiseman too, right? Can he do anything against Ayton? Can he actually help them play bigger when they want to play bigger or not? All right, that's the Warriors stuff there. I think this is going to be, to me, this looks like it's going to be the Western Conference Finals. I frankly don't really see a way around that. I wanted to tie a bow on the Phoenix Suns 33 question from Reddit too, in terms of the max contract. Does Ayton, is he worth the max contract based on how he's been playing this year? I think yes. I still think yes, because to me, the ability to sacrifice and execute at an elite level in his role, I mean, that was the biggest thing. That was the biggest thing, right? When we were talking about the contract and when we were debating if he was going to get it, if he was worth it, et cetera, et cetera. We don't know. We may never know what it would look like for Ayton to be, in a similar situation to, Karl Anthony Towns offensively, where he gets to do whatever he wants, right? And Cat's a more polished offensive player, don't get me wrong, but we don't see that version of Ayton. We probably never will. But the fact that he's doing what he's being asked to do at an elite level, I mean, what else can you ask a guy to do? I think the fact that he's put that effort and energy in on a consistent basis this season, to me, shows that he is worthy of that max. I mean, you want to see it over a full year, right? I mean, it's going to continue to be the question. He has to really string months, not just days together of doing that. But at this point, I mean, yeah, I think you have to feel like him turning the playoff performance that he put in into another big regular season. You kind of have to feel that way. Okay, another one coming from the Suns subreddit here. Are the Suns the best team in the NBA? That is from user Tizdo. I think yes. I think if you factor in what it would have looked like for Devin Booker to play all 96 minutes of those two games, I think the Suns probably would have won on Friday if Booker had played, even though they were on the road. And I think, and Bridges, I mean, obviously nobody's going to ever be perfectly healthy, but even if you just got Booker adding in, I don't think that in and of itself makes up a 22-point deficit, but I think the Suns are able to play a little bit more in control. Campaign doesn't have to take as many shots. And I don't see anybody else in the league that really matches those guys. I think the Heat are having some growing pains. They're nowhere near deep enough to me to be at that level. The Nets, I don't know. I don't watch that team closely enough to really know, but the guys that are playing for that team don't make a lot of sense to me. I understand Blake Griffin was in a slump. He's now getting benched, but I don't understand why there's so much DeAndre Bembry happening. I don't understand why they don't just go with as much shooting plus KD and Harden as they can get and just go with that. I don't understand a lot of it. They still don't really have a defensive center. I don't understand how they haven't gotten one of those. So that team just has a lot of question marks to me. And then in the West, I mean, I'm not afraid of the Jazz. I would like to see more of those teams playing. They haven't clashed this year. And then the Lakers, the Clippers, the Nuggets, those teams are too injured and inconsistent for me to really factor them in too much. So it's the Suns and the Warriors, and they just went 1-1. And I think the Suns proved even without their best player that they could be competitive. So you add their best player in, and I think it's pretty clear that they would at least be able to have an advantage in theory. So I'm so excited for Christmas, but that's where I think things stand now. A couple questions on additions. So somebody is bringing up the Thad Young thing again, probably because Bobby Marks over the weekend at ESPN, there was a expert roundtable where he brought up the Thad Young thing again. So I want to revisit it. And then there's another that is from Marcos VSC on Reddit, and then another from user Trey Takzona on Reddit as well. Are there any future roster moves in terms of trades or buyout candidates you feel would be good for the team? So I want to revisit. I do have a couple more names potentially that I think could be interesting, but above and beyond that, I think for me, what's interesting is looking at what role the Suns really need. And that's one area where I do want to just quickly shout out Ish Wainwright, who played 9 minutes on Friday night in Golden State, doubled his minutes from the previous game, played more minutes than Elfrid Payton. I think that Ish is somebody you're going to continue to see play. And what you start to get into, if he plays with the level of IQ and energy and defensive ability that we've already seen, and can start to get his feet underneath of him as an offensive player, while Abdul Nader and Devin Booker remain out, I think you very quickly start to get to the point of, does he get escalated from being a two-way player? Because remember, Wainwright and Hutchison are both still two-way players, and you want Wainwright. Eventually, you might want Wainwright to be escalated to a full contract if he exceeds the number of days he's allowed to be with the NBA squad. And, if you just like him, you want to lock him in, right? Not saying we're there yet, but we could be. And that would take up the Suns roster spot. They have an open roster spot. They have a little bit of their biannual exception, their mid-level exception remaining. I believe 3 to 4 million, 5 million, something like that, because they only paid JaVale McGee about half of it. So that's where things stand. They still have Jalen Smith's pretty big contract to use. So I just think the Ish thing is something to monitor, but that's the tools at their disposal. What I would say in terms of Thad Young is that to me seems like less and less of what the Suns really need, because I thought what was going to be the most important was a small ball center type of option, potentially, where, Torrey Craig was that guy, Dario Saric was that guy. Both of those players are not with the team right now. We don't really have a lot. You can't really have a lot of optimism that Saric is going to be a contributor at any point this year, just because even if he was going to come back, it would be so late in the season that it's hard to say he would be able to contribute. So still, I just think you're getting such high level play from Ayton and McGee that to me is probably not a high priority, because if you're into a situation where a team is genuinely playing Ayton or McGee off the floor and you cannot survive with the regular traditional center, you're probably at a disadvantage in that series already, and you're probably not going to win it. And so acquiring a player who allows you to go away from what your identity already is, I don't really like that. What I think their priority should be now is another wing who can check and be versatile in sort of the against the best wing teams in the NBA, the deepest wing and perimeter teams in the league. And maybe that small ball 5 look is actually with Jay Crowder. So that's how I'm going to wrap this up. I have a couple of names that I will get to here in just a second. Those are from the Rockets. I think Daniel House is somebody that definitely deserves a look. We were talking about this in the NBA Locked On NBA group chat, so I'm going to pull up those names now. But Thad is not so much. I think Robert Covington would be another one. I'm not saying he is available, but if that Portland situation goes downhill, he makes right around the amount of money where you could put a Jalen Smith package together. Maybe Jalen Smith, Nader in a second or something gets that type of trade done. But that's more so where I would be looking, honestly, is a wing. And maybe it's Crowder at the 5, but you want to have as many options there as you can. I think that's the original thinking with Torrey Craig way back when was, can we get a wing defender who has energy and can be a LeBron option or, a Luka option or a Klay Thompson guarding option. And it just so happened that he ended up building himself into more of a forward because of his energy and physicality and rebounding and all of that, where he was playing a lot of 5 in the playoffs. But that's sort of where I'd be looking. So I think less so Thaddeus Young, more so those other options, House or who did I just say? Covington, in addition to the guys like Harrison Barnes, who I've already mentioned in the past, and others. All right, went a little long. I'm going to wrap things up now. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen. We've got towels galore. Subscribe to YouTube. Wherever, if you have not already, listen wherever you get your podcasts. I will be back with you recapping the Spurs game late Monday night, so catch me again then. Until then, enjoy the game, folks.